Hi, welcome at another Canto Roboflow training movie. This is actually part 2 of testsuite9. So if you haven't watched part 1, you should, because the movies belong together. I built my story on top of the first demo or training movie. We discussed in the previous workflow that I have Cumulus catalogs that I prepared with a special field, and that I have an EJAP with which I will be able to set special or I will be able to select records and have that information stored in a table field. That way this EJAP will talk to Roboflow. Roboflow will pick up that information. But before we get to that point, we first need some files. We ran the first hotfolder workflow in which we were just cleaning up if anything was in the from or the to catalog that we will use in the next workflows, and it has now copied from the drop folder in the previous workflow. It has now copied these files into this folder with subfolder being the first name of the file. So now we are ready to catalog the files. We could have done that in the previous workflow, but the purpose of this test suite is to demonstrate every type of workflow we have. So the second type of workflow is a watchfolder workflow, which watches the folders, predefined folders in this hot folder, which is called here in this example the from catalog, and I will be cataloging, synchronizing it to the from catalog that we added before to our Cumulus environment. Make sure to check out that your asset handling set is correct, that it is able to catalog files. Other than that, this workflow has no additional special parameters, but this one is a very important one. Category starting point. If a file is cataloged, it will automatically create the sources categories if it's enabled in your catalog, and this is the case. This will create a huge subfolder structure from where the file is. For our demo purposes, we are recreating the folders only from the level of the root inside the hot folder or watch folder, which means that I will be creating here categories called A, B, C, D, E. For me, that means that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 levels. So my before that I don't want to see show up, and so to remove those 9 levels I have to go to here and I set the starting point of my category tree is going to be the 10th subfolder. You will see in a minute what that means. In this example we did not add any special action scripts. That means that we could have done something extra with the files, the new files coming in, or we could have done something extra with the records being updated when a file is updated, but that's not the purpose of this movie. In this demo movie we'll just keep it simple and have a simple watch folder synchronization. At this point the catalog is empty, and when I start the workflow it will look in that folder and it will start cataloging the files, and I just have to check if, yep, there it is. You can see it brings in all the records. We have 13 records in here. So that's how that went, and then you have to check if this is exactly like this. Here you can see that you have all these 10 all these sub-levels before you get to finally the same A, B, C, D, whatever categories. So here in reality this is the category structure that we really want to be using, and not that elaborate sources one. Now this brings me to the second part of the workflow. We have a situation here where a user is allowed, permission-wise, to perform some actions. You can define which ones the user is allowed to do, and to perform these actions, Roboflow will get notified by this action table. So there are many ways of doing this kind of stuff. In this case, we will write information inside the action table, and then there will be another workflow, hot collection workflow, which is a workflow that watches that watches a catalog and launches a query. In this case, we are looking in the to catalog and in the from catalog, the two catalogs that play a role in this example. And I'm looking for the action table / status field if I find a record whose status is set to new. That's the starting point for this workflow. In this workflow, if you are going to use this, you don't have to change this if you use the default application folder settings, but if you want to use your own folders, you have to change this application folder to the real folder where you have your from catalog and your to catalog. In this example, it assumes that it's in the same folder residing in your Roboflow installation here inside the test files. This is the Roboflow folder, and inside this folder you should have all those files. It will work inside that. So that's the only thing you have to set up. What does this workflow do? Well, it has a query which finds any record who has a status in the action table set to new, and then it will store the ID of that particular item in the action table so that it can process it here further down the line. It will store the action name. So when we do a selection here, the action name will here be in this field, and whatever I've set up here in this EJAP, in this plugin that I created, which is not part of Roboflow, just something I wrote, it gives me a dynamic way of creating menu items, and these menu items can easily contain what you want to do. The action name is the actual thing that Roboflow will look for. The other stuff is client stuff, just saying you only have to select one record, or you can select multiple records, or you have to select a record and a category, etc., etc. So lots of possibilities. So in this example, I'm going to say I want, for instance, here to first I'll finish here, then here in this workflow I read from that parameter file that we have here to find what the root is for the cataloging it's processing, because it might be processing in this list 10 catalogs with which you want to do this. Then in this list you would have here 10 catalogs, so I have to be able to determine what the root folder is. If there's any requests for copying or moving files, I need to know what the root folder of my environment is where I'm working in. I'm reading this file and looking for it, and then here all these tests, that is what the actual processing is. So if the action was rename file, then it's going to execute this part. If it's delete record, if it's delete file. The purpose of this workflow is to give you the ability to test as much or see the functionalities of Cumulus, be it renaming a category, creating a category, copying files from one folder to another, deleting records, copying records, or moving records to another catalog, etc., etc. So all these functionalities just come from a definition that I do in the EJAP. In the EJAP define some menu item, which I give a name, and then that particular name, so for instance if we take the rename here, if that particular name is in the workflow, here in the workflow, I will have here somewhere the rename. How does he do that? He looks for the variable called action that I stored a couple of instructions above. From that action table, I test if it's equals to rename file. So if he finds its rename file, then it will process this part of the workflow. It will store the name from the action table. It has to be renamed too. It will do a rename. It will store the new name in the asset name here, and it will test if the file was properly renamed. If it was properly renamed, it will set the status result of this item to status done, status result, the status running variable to done. So it sets it to done, and that means at the end of the workflow I will be storing that to here. I will say in the status, I will set the status of the value to the status running, which is done. If it fails, it will set the status to error. So, and that's what it does for every individual instruction. This way, for every version, you can test what the behavior is of this instruction in the new version. Okay, this is running on an interval. I run it on 10 seconds. In a real situation, you would run it. It would be better to run it on 30 seconds. Interval 10 is a very frequent interval, so might sometimes be taking too much processing power from your Cumulus. So 30 seconds might be better, but in this test, this will do fine. I go to the Cumulus client and I say I want to rename this file. You could say, yeah, I can do this with the basic rename from Cumulus, correct, if you have access to the file system. If you don't have access to the file system, you have no way of doing that, so that's why you could do it this way. It says, okay, this is the current name. What do you want to change it in? Well, I'm going to say I want to change this in blah. Okay, it says, okay, one record processed, done. And if we refresh the screen, you can see that we have a status new here for this. And you see it's already renamed to blah, and it refreshes here, it's done. So it's that quickly. And if you do a show location, you can see that the file that was tongue is now called blah. Now, if I say, okay, but blah belongs not in the T folder where it resides now, I want to move this to the A folder. I want to move it from this folder to that folder. I just select the file and I click the B. Oh, but there is no B, so I first have to create a B folder. So I select my categories and I say, okay, I want a new folder. So I say task force create. Oh, I selected update record. That was not necessary, sorry. Here, create category. Okay, and what is the category I want to create? I want to create B. Okay, done. And if you refresh, you can see that it did already do the update record, create category, and it has created the B category. So now I can say I want to move this record to this folder. So I go to Task Force and I say move file. Okay, that's all. And if I if I have a look and I refresh, I can see that he performed already the move file. All the information that was used, etc., etc., is in here. And I can have a look now. B, there it is. And if I look at T, it's gone. So this is the way to play around and find files. And I could say, okay, if I want this file, I want to move it here. Well, I can say, okay, from here to there. Oh, sorry. I'll say move record or copy record to another catalog. Let's say I didn't create the move instruction here. I created it. So where do I want to copy? Enter the category name where you want to move it to. Okay, I want to move it to C from cry. Okay, close. Now you will see that it created C and it has cry underneath. So you see, this is a very fast and easy way to play around with Roboflow, and this plugin gives you the ability even to communicate from the client with Roboflow. In the next movie we will focus on watch categories workflow, and we will focus on the SQL workflow, watch SQL workflow, and the FTP workflow. Thank you for joining, and see you in the next movie.